I really don't think I can sit there and go, you've dished on my fiance so hard, like I can't be doing that.
This week's episode of The Bachelor was the beginning of the end of Clare's journey, and we're breaking down all the drama. Hey guys, welcome back to another Shared News from Home. We have so much to talk about from this week's episode. But before we get into it, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future updates. As always, I'm your host, Fiona Zaring, and I'm joined by the wonderful Avery Grooms and Gabby Gonta.
Hi, can't wait to talk about this one.
Oh my gosh, you guys. So the drama arrived tonight. We have been waiting and anticipating. And this episode, not to sound like Chris Harrison, but I think may have just been the most dramatic episode I've ever seen. I feel like we have to just dive right in because there's honestly so much to talk about. We started right where we left off last week with the cocktail party. And of course, we all knew the Yosef bomb was going to explode tonight. But oh my goodness, I don't know what I was expecting, but it was not that. It is difficult to even recap because it was truly so out of control. He did start off on the calmer side, explaining some red flags that actually kind of made sense. The way he started things, it was like, okay, this is a tough conversation, but I do see where you're going. He was really bothered by, on the group date that he was in, Claire saying that the men were there for her. She didn't say that they were, there for themselves or that they were all in it together. She, I guess, made a statement that was very, very clear that they are there for her. And he, of course, as a daughter, had to quarantine, put his life on hold. So that kind of rubbed him the wrong way. And Claire jumps in, she starts to empathize, kind of to reaffirm his emotions, to make him feel better. She brings up the fact that her mother is ill and dying. And you know what he did? He told her to not interrupt him because he wasn't looking for empathy or for a discussion or for a conversation. He really, at this point on, was just on the attack. He moved on to that dodgeball date that he, of course, wasn't even at. And things got ugly really quick. I think at this point, you guys, we all watched it. He said some horrible, disrespectful, just hideous things.
I was so appalled. A completely classless display. Mm-hmm. I expected a lot more from the oldest Bachelorette that's ever been.
Just to go over a few, he was appalled at the nudity of it all, called it humiliating, degrading, said it seemed silly and immature. We talked about this last week. Twitter kind of felt the same way. It wasn't the show's finest moment, but again, I think his delivery here is really everything. He went on to say she's not setting the right example and that he's ashamed to be associated with her. He made it clear he wouldn't be caught dead doing anything like that on TV because of his daughter. But again, he was pretty much just attacking someone on television, so... Not to say he's hypocritical, but I think my feelings towards Yosef are pretty clear. After 20 minutes, you guys, we of course didn't see 20 minutes of this. And I felt like I had seen more than enough. After 20 minutes, Claire says she has had enough. She shuts him down. She brings back that same iconic line she delivered to Juan Pablo.
Never thought I'd ever have to tell any man that I would never want them being the father of my child, and I stand by that. I would never want my children having a father like you. Get out of here.
And she tries to walk away. This is when things get even uglier. At this point, he's screaming at her. He says she's not fit to be a mother to his child, says she's completely classless. At some point, he shouts, "Remember, you're almost 40, gives it a "she's all yours, boys," just for good measure. And then, of course, that line we've been seeing in all the promos.
I expected way more from the oldest Bachelorette.
Sick.
So, you guys... What are your reactions? Let's just start there. What were your feelings when all of this was going on? Avery, I mean, pretty crazy.
Yes, very crazy. I mean, we were anticipating some Yosef drama. I just don't understand why. Well, I do and I don't understand why he had to come for her about the date that he wasn't even on. So it's like, can we just put that to rest? But he still had to express those feelings. It was clear he was just angry and wanted to attack. And so did she, but he tried to shut her down. So it was like they're both people who want to have the last word. And it kind of ended exactly how I pictured it would. Claire with her classic monologue, and Yosef leaving.
I think Yosef just really did this in the most rude way possible. I think it could have been a good conversation for them to have. Like you said, Fiona, it started out not too bad, and then it just really escalated. And, you know, we've said this before, but like, if you're going on a reality show, like, have you seen The Bachelorette before? Like, they kind of make them do some crazy stuff. You know, I'm sure they think it's all in good fun, and some people, you know, aren't down for it or whatever, but like, it's not out of the question to do some of these weird things on the shows. And plus, he wasn't even on the date. So it was just blown out of proportion. I think he's been a red flag since the first episode, and he just really needed to go home, and I'm glad that he did.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, we've known something was coming. I think that it was clear. I mean, even just the way he was talking with the guys beforehand, like, he went into this going home. He wasn't really, I mean, he didn't say this at any point, like, bluntly, but I don't think there was no answer Claire could have given him tonight that would have made him change his mind. Nobody feels that extremely about something and, you know, feels like they can be won back over. So my question for you guys is, we did know this was coming to a certain degree, but tonight's episode had so many moments, and I sort of feel like this was still one of, if not the most shocking. Were you guys expecting it to go this far off the rails? I feel like this was still so shocking, even with the teases we got. What do you think, Gabby?
I don't think it was the most shocking. I think, you know, each moment kept adding on top of each other. So by the end, I was just like in pure shock about the entire episode. But it was definitely a crazy moment. It went down a little crazier than I imagined from just the promos that we've seen. But there's more shocking stuff coming, so let's get into all that.
Obviously, I think we're also happy to see Yosef get thrown out of there, and it seems like producers were certainly happy to get Dale in there ASAP and try to smooth things over. Dale swoops in and says all the right things. He commended her for her strength, for knowing what she wants and for what she deserves, tells her to focus on what matters and who really matters. And Claire does ask him one thing about Yosef in particular, which was at some point she said he thinks the guys were appeasing her. And of course, Dale shuts this down and says he was crazy. Dale's showing clearly meant a lot. Claire even said she's falling in love with him. Gabby, I want to know your thoughts on this. What did you think when you saw Dale just come in and just kind of save the day after the whole Yosef drama?
It was suspiciously perfect timing, I will say. But last recap, I was saying, you know, I wanted to see more from Dale showing affection to Claire, and I think that was the moment this week. You know, he certainly seemed to be comforting of her and saying, you know, things that seemed from the heart, and it really helped her pick her up out of that low point that she was at during this episode. And I mean, she says she's falling in love with him. That's huge. So this moment obviously meant a lot to her.
I mean, this moment, I think, solidified it for Claire. With everything that we've already seen, you know, from the rest of this episode, I feel like it can be traced back to this moment. This was the moment that no other guy was ever going to be able to catch up. It solidified him as a front runner. To say that they're falling in love, I mean, that is such a big statement. We are on episode 3 of the season. Like, it is moving fast. And I think this was it. This was like the precursor for the rest of the night. It was just going to be a mess after this.
After all of this went down, Claire was not feeling up for the cocktail party and decided to go straight to the rose ceremony. I feel for her. I never want to socialize after I've had a bad night. And then we ended up seeing a rare BTS moment, the first of quite a few in this episode, where Chris Harrison sat down to talk with Claire. They talked about her and Dale's relationship. You know, she was giddy, getting butterflies. And they talked about moving forward with the evening, which was canceling the cocktail party and going straight to the rose ceremony. So when they broke the news to the guys, they seemed totally chill about it, which would not be the case in the future cancelings that happened during this episode. But in this case, They were fine with it, wanted to do whatever Clare needed to get better for the night, which was very sweet of them. But still, many of them were upset because they didn't get the time that they needed that night to talk with her before the rose ceremony. Once we got there, of course, we said goodbye to some of the guys, but we didn't really know them well anyway, so it wasn't, too bad to see them go. To make up for it in sort of all the chaos that went on that night, Chris Harrison announced that there will be 3 dates this week, hopefully to get those guys to have more time with Clare. So, Avery, what do you think about where we are at in this episode? How do you feel for the guys? They wanted to give Clare her space, but of course they want more time with her. What would you do if you were in their situation?
I feel for them. This is obviously a hard situation to be in, and they're so isolated, mainly just spending so much time with each other, not even with Clare. And they just seem kind of in the dark about so much, like they don't know what's going to happen next. And that's Clare leaving them. So I really feel for them because I don't think they're getting a fair shot at this like they should.
Well, this was sort of the first of many moments in the night that genuinely felt not necessarily like you could see both sides. Of course, like if I was just sobbing and had a horrible night, I wouldn't want to go sit around and sip cocktails. I totally saw Clare's like wanting to be done with tonight. But this was the first of many moments that felt like if I was a guy in that room, I would like look at the cards I'd been dealt and go, well, this is just not fair. Like, this is just not fair. I didn't get the time. I didn't get to go through with the date. When am I going to get a fair shake? Like, this was moment number 1. And as we know, those moments just continued and continued. Which, of course, takes us to our first group date. We had Jason, Jay, Easy, Chasen, Blake, Ed, Riley, and Dale. Some of, I feel like all of the guys we know. They've all sort of made an impression. They all have personalities that we've sort of started to get familiar with. And it was really sweet. They were all so excited to bring some positive vibes. They sort of, banded together and were like, this is going to be a good day. This is going to be so fun. We then cut away from them and we saw before the date, Clare sat down with Deanna, who is a former Bachelorette, and they had an interesting conversation. They really talked about this concept of when you know, which I thought was really interesting because obviously producers and Clare sort of prepped her going in. They know this is a chat happening on camera, and Deanna sort of really upped and endorsed this narrative that she may have already found the one, which feels sort of like a strange strategy on the side of producers, on the side of Clare. We're supposed to be giving the rest of the guys a fair shake still at this stage of the game. So the whole conversation sat a little bit weird with me. We can move on from that because I do think we really need to discuss the fact that they spent a lot of time sort of passing back and forth a pair of Dale's pants, sniffing them. I think at one point Clare said she slept with the pants. I don't know if that was just me, you guys, but that kind of freaked me out a little bit. What were your thoughts on the pants moment, Gabby?
I was a little confused and weirded out too. I get wanting your boyfriend's hoodie or I guess his sweatpants, but just the way they handled this was a little bit strange. I was like, where did these come from?
Yeah, I just thought it was very odd. Just an item of Dale's. And of course it's Dale's. I feel like it's just the whole Dale show at this point. But it was just confusing.
It was just tough. Of course, she then, jokes that it's going to be a short season, which again, you guys, I'm like, has she been whispering with a producer? These were just the whole conversation was a little bit strange. Meanwhile, the guys are sitting, twiddling their thumbs, waiting, hoping, putting so much pressure on themselves. And Clare comes in all chipper to cancel the day portion for an extra long cocktail party, which I thought was a little bit of I thought she just needed to give them more of an explanation. I don't want to do this, but this will be fun instead. It just fell a little flat. The whole thing seemed a little lackluster. She should have given them more. Everyone is bummed, of course, except Dale. He seems to be very confident, very excited, which as we all saw really worked out. He kicks off the night with a speech about them, being there for each other. I think they called it the Band of Brothers speech. He asks for a group hug, which drew some, eye rolls and awkward moments. And then he asks,
If
I can speak with Claire first, even if it's for 5 minutes, I would greatly appreciate that. And this was nothing to try to like jump the gun. So, but I want to be just respectful of everything.
So Avery, we know this didn't really work out as he said.
Yes, we of course already knew it was not going to be just 5 minutes. From here out, we really see the beginning of the end. Dale and Claire go to the room. They talk about the whole Yosef situation. He offers her some advice and some comfort, and then it quickly turns into a makeout session. Meanwhile, we watch the guys grow more and more anxious and irritated while they're all just sitting there sipping on some wine, wondering where they went. Did you guys think this situation was uncool? Because from the moment he said 5 minutes, like we said, we knew it wasn't going to be 5 minutes, but it ended up being 45 minutes. And I think, once again, that is just clearly way too unfair and too obvious.
I mean, I totally agree with you. I couldn't have put it better. I think that from the get-go, this just was not cool. It's one thing to, Dale immediately comforted her after the drama. So to be like, before we get the night started, I want to tie a bow on that situation. I want to, have that conversation so we can move on. But not have that conversation and then make out for 40 minutes when you've got other guys. This was not a one-on-one. This was not private time. I did not think it was cool.
I think Dale is at heart a good guy, and I think when he was making that toast and doing the group hug and stuff, he had good intentions, and he maybe even totally intended for it to be only 5 minutes, but they seem to be really hitting it off and really getting to know each other. So I think Dale definitely probably just lost track of time and was having an awesome time with Claire and meant no harm in the moment. But even if Dale meant no harm, the other guys were certainly waiting for the moment for him to come back and to get more time with Claire. So after about an hour, Easy took it upon himself to go investigate. He said he was walking around the property, which seemed like a bit of a maze. I totally believe him there. But he ended up finding Claire's room and knocked on the door, which interrupted their little date/talking session.
It's got it back.
Oh, is there a knock on the door?
Oh, let me go hide in the closet.
Hide in the closet and stay in the closet.
I can't fit under the bed.
And it was pretty cringy. It seemed like a bit of a high school moment where your parents are like, the buzzkill situation. And then, Claire let Easy in and Dale happened to be there and they were all giddy and giggly and Easy was, feeling the vibes, and it was just a whole strange, situation. Dale ended up leaving, and she got to spend some time with Easy and was getting some time now with the other guys after her big, long Dale moment. But we did get a sneak, behind-the-scenes moment when Claire was talking to the producers, and basically she was saying, okay, now let's just hurry every other guy along. Let's just get done with the night. She seemed to have had her time with Dale, who was, her front runner, and she was just ready to be done with it. So I thought that was such an interesting moment. We don't normally get these, behind the scenes clips of Claire just sort of really speaking her mind. So I think it was interesting that they gave that to us in this episode. And it's super telling about, where Claire is going with this journey and how she really feels.
I think we may have talked about this in the Twitter portion of last week's recap. I feel like someone on Twitter said this, but I am starting to kind of see the edit they're giving her, and I'm starting to feel like it's not the typical Bachelorette edit. This is a moment, they were putting her on blast. She is putting her guard down with these producers. She's saying what she wants to say. And you know what? I do think, playing devil's advocate here, maybe there's a world in which this season would just not make sense without these moments. They felt like they were needed for the context. But my God, if I'm Claire watching that line, hearing that all of America heard you say okay, let's hurry it along, every smile, every laugh you gave to every other guy just looks kind of fake. And I don't know, I feel like they don't usually put the lead on blast like that.
I think she's definitely switched up. From the first episode, she started explaining about how appreciative she was for all the guys showing up and how she wanted to just be very present in the moment when she's one-on-one with each guy and give them all the time they deserve. And now we see this side where she's saying the total opposite. And I understand from her end, she found the one. And once that happens, she has only eyes for Dale, essentially. But at the same time, she's been in their shoes. She could be a little more considerate or just handle it a little differently. That's why I also agree with you, Fiona, about that theory from the tweet, that it's starting to make sense, that whole narrative.
Totally. I think Claire has said multiple times, whenever she's with Dale, everything else, goes away. And so that is the other guys in this situation. Although she did make some time to spend with them because there were still guys at that cocktail party, and she made sure she talked to everybody because they needed to get time this week. But Dale ended up interrupting again during another guy's moment. He accidentally walked in on Claire and Jay when they were talking. And, she didn't seem to mind. She invited him right in, and they ended up, having another makeout session. So seems to be that she always has Dale on her mind. And anytime he pops up, she's gonna invite him in. So after they had that moment, Chasen interrupted them, and it was another weird moment where they were having a good old time and got interrupted. And then things got really tough when Dale went back to the group of guys. He was claiming he was going to the bathroom when he stumbled upon them. He didn't know Claire was in there. And it was just a weird situation where the guys were just asking him to own up to it. Like, if you want more time with Claire, just say it. Don't come up with this weird lie and try to get out of it. So I thought this was really strange because, Dale seems like a guy who would own up to that, but I feel like he just really didn't want to be in the wrong in this case. So he was kind of like, I'm caught. But Avery, what do you think happened in this moment? And, why was he so fumbling in his words and just coming up with this weird lie?
I know, he definitely choked. And I feel like the guys, they were going to confront him, and that could have went in a totally different direction, but they were so mature about it, so patient. It wasn't that intimidating. And then he got really choked up and flustered and made it way harder than it was. He could have just been honest, and they were like, come on, dude, just be straight up with us. And he couldn't do that, and he started digging himself a hole. And then I was like, okay, come on, Dale, what are you doing? What is this answer? It's not that difficult. But so that's when he looked a little suspicious, and he definitely could have handled that a lot better. But I think he was very nervous because he definitely did get caught up.
I think we really got to see some of Dale's personality tonight. Like Gabby, who you were saying earlier, they got caught up. They were having fun, right? But ultimately they were making out like high schoolers. They were off in a corner, hiding away from everybody else at the party. It was definitely a very silly, goofy experience. And I feel like Dale ultimately has respect for these guys. He started the night wanting to be off on a good foot, and then he got caught up with the girl that he totally likes. And he had sort of a giggly, 5-year-old personality. Lying doesn't come easy to him, I think, is what we can take away from this. And to be honest with you, part of what I just kept thinking is, if he were to be completely honest, which I feel like that's kind of his thing, is he's not a big liar. Clearly he's not good at it. He doesn't want to tell them what they were just doing, because that sucks to tell these guys that you respect, that you're kind of friends with, that you're all sort of dating the same girl. It was a bad situation. And I think trying to avoid that is where he dug himself a hole, because ultimately all they were looking for was not a confession of a play-by-play of what went down. They just wanted to you know what, that wasn't cool of me. I lost track of time. I wanted to spend more time with her. Was it selfish? Yes. Totally understand you guys are annoyed. And I think he just got lost. And in a way, it was sort of sweet. But overall, I was like, oh my God, there's too much. It's just too much. So obviously, as we've been talking about, it was a lot to process, from their time together to Dale's excuses. I don't think it came as a surprise to anyone that Claire ended the date by giving her rose to Dale. Sort of solidified in the guys, though, some of that tension, some of that anger, even though they did handle it maturely. It's a little bit of a slap after everything that played out in the night. When they rejoined the group of the other guys that weren't on the date, they do call him out again, and he sort of has another stumble. He, I think, was trying to explain that he was the best suited to have that initial conversation that he said he wanted to have at the beginning of the night with Claire, which on a lot of levels makes sense. He and her, we already talked about this. He and her, went through it the first night and he wanted to tie a bow on it. Okay, fine. But that phrasing after everything that happened, it was just putting his foot in his mouth. And it really, in particular, upset Jason. I think sort of lines were drawn at this point. People had no more patience. Meanwhile, completely unrelated to this, Zach J is just excited about his one-on-one, which feels like kind of irrelevant. So much happened that I almost forgot about this, and we have one of the most awkward moments of the night on this one-on-one. They, of course, have a spa date planned. Bad omen headed into the date. Claire was more excited about the outfit she saw Dale wearing in passing than she was about going on the date. So right there, not a great sign. Poor Zach was a little uncomfortable with the activities. It was his first pedicure. He was ticklish. He was a little nervous. Claire at one point says that his energy stresses her out. To be clear, I don't think sparks were flying, but I don't think it was horrible. I think in other conditions, if she hadn't had her mind so made up, I don't think it would have been that bad of a date. Just kind of felt like there was no chance from the get-go. When they move out of the spa portion into just like a little fun pool moment, everyone seemed to loosen up a little more. The dog joined the party. Seemed like we were on a better track until on her way out, Claire leans in for a kiss.
What? Oh.
No, why did you stop? What are you doing? I was right there.
She pauses and then pulls away. And, through the interviews and through the play-by-play, basically it seems like Zach thought that she was going to keep leaning, so he stood still. And she thought that it was his time to meet her. And then the kiss fell apart. And it was tough to see. It was even tougher to try to watch the recovery. He, of course, can immediately tell she's upset and embarrassed. I think he tried to sort of take charge. She wants someone who's going to be confident. I think in that moment, his brain went to take charge and show up, try to kiss her, make it clear that you weren't, rejecting her. But that didn't play. It made her extremely uncomfortable. At that point, she didn't want to kiss and he was sort of pursuing it. So it was just a snowball effect of bad. What were your reactions in this moment? I feel like this was honestly one of the toughest moments of the night.
Totally. I have two opinions about this moment. I think, as soon as Claire felt uncomfortable, that she was totally, fine to walk away or shut it down and do whatever she needed to do to wrap up that moment. But on the other hand, something went on between that kiss moment. There was something that, went wrong, and she just really didn't want to talk about it. I think, if they would have just talked about this moment and really had a moment to, take a step back and figure out what just happened rather than her, really walking away and saying, oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it, whatever. I think communication is ultimately the most important thing in any relationship. And so I thought it was really weird that, they just didn't address the feelings they're having in that moment. And she just sort of threw it to the side and then just said, I'll meet you at dinner. And then the dinner didn't happen and all of that just came to an end. So I thought that was a weird thing for her to do in that moment.
It was very weird. Like you said, Fiona, sparks were definitely not flying on this date, but I don't even think she wanted them to. And then when this whole kiss incident happened, like you said, Gabby, that could have easily been made up for, but it was to me, I felt like she was looking for something to go wrong and almost just wanted that to happen so she could call quits easier. I mean, in the back of her head, she knows this isn't going anywhere. The poor guy just tried to show up and kiss her. That was clearly just a misunderstanding, and he got the bad end of the stick. But I think she could have at least showed up to the dinner. I think he deserved more of an explanation, but once again, another very odd situation. So somehow after all this, we still had the roast date to get through. Famous comedian Margaret Cho joined in on the fun. The guys on the date had to give the roast, and the guys not on the date were in the audience. Bennett really decided to go for Dale, but so did everyone else.
You look like the boa constrictor from the Jungle Book, and it's only a matter of time before Claire snaps out of your spell.
They just showed us the Dale moments, but based on their discussion afterwards, they all definitely did tell other jokes too. Clare was visibly annoyed throughout the night. Afterwards, we hear her telling producers that wasn't funny. So, Gabby, what do you think? Was it a good idea for the guys to roast Dale? Do we think they went too far?
I think it was all in good fun, and I think they certainly needed to get all of this energy off their chest, and they seem to do a good job with these roasts. A lot of them were super funny. I think it was strange for Clare to be so upset because in the beginning she was telling everyone, you know, I love a guy who can take a joke and be a good sport, and then she was the one who wasn't really a good sport when it came to her man. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic, but I thought it was a fun day, and Dale himself seemed to be a good sport.
Okay, ultimately, I think that this was a really interesting move on producers' end. Like, it honestly probably felt good for them to relieve some of this tension. We've talked about it throughout this video already, but I do think the way these guys have handled themselves in terms of, like, they kind of actually try to talk about some stuff. Yes, they have their petty moments. Yes, they have their gossipy moments. But based on what we have seen on this show in the past, it felt like a lot of them were like, all right, got some stuff I want to get off my chest. I'm going to do it in a light way. I'm going to do it in a funny way. We're going to laugh and get through this and move on. Like, I felt like it was a really interesting activity. And it seemed like Dale was, of course, it's not hard to hear jokes about yourself, but every time they cut to his face, he was smiling, he was laughing. If I were Dale, I'd be like, oh, I've got all these guys' goats. Like, they are all jealous of me. Like, I must be in a good spot with Clare. He seemed to enjoy it. So, you know, I don't know. I do think Clare seemed to be more upset. I was expecting more anger from Dale than Clare, and it seemed to be the reverse.
I think roasts are a great way for people to offend people, but they could get away with it because it's in a more humorous light. So this had to be very therapeutic for them. But the fact that they all came for Dale, I feel like that also just gave him the upper hand also, because he took it like a champ, and Clare was the one kind of being contradicting and not being such a good sport about it.
Yes, they all had their fun, and then that brings us to the rose ceremony after this date. Clare tried to keep it light and fun, but she definitely had one thing on her mind, and that was getting to the bottom of all these Dale rumors and roasts. She started off with Bennett, who says he felt that his jokes were fair, but Clare really wanted to know what these guys meant by the comments. So she continued to interrogate everyone that she sat down to talk with. And the guys started comparing the conversations and to catch on to what was happening. So they were all figuring out that she's only talking about Dale when she really should be getting to know us right now. Zach C described it as Gossip Girl moment. This really seemed like Clare's Gossip Girl circle. You know, it seems a lot like Clare. You know, whenever Dale's around, she only wants to hang out with Dale. And whenever he's not around, she only wants to talk about him. So that seems to be what was going on in this moment. As the night went on, they were getting more and more defeated. And Kenny in particular was starting to feel like this is all a waste of their time. Clare, of course, solidifies those feelings when she refuses to give anyone a rose after this date. Ugh, that made me feel so much for these guys. They're trying so hard. You know, all they wanted was a group day rose when Dale wasn't there, and she did not give it out because she didn't feel like she had enough time with these guys in this moment when they were really trying really hard. She was only asking them questions about Dale, clearly not even trying to get to know them. And so obviously that's why she didn't feel any strong of a connection to then give a group date rose. After that, we saw another behind the scenes moment.
I really don't think I can sit there and go, you've dished on my fiance so hard. Like I can't be doing that.
Guys, she calls him her fiance. What was up with that? Like, did I miss the moment when Dale proposed? Because I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. Like, what's going on here, Avery? Why do you think, you know, she used this word? She's acting like, you know, he's already hers. This is crazy. What do you think?
I mean, in Clare's mind, he is. The show's already over in her head. They already got married. They're on the honeymoon right now. It's just, I don't know. It's just crazy to come in and say you're not going to give out a rose because she didn't get to spend enough time with these guys. But all she did was try to investigate another Dale's situation. She didn't, like you said, take time to get to know any of them. So it's they're still having to take the fall again at the end of the day. I really feel for these guys. I feel honestly really bad for them.
You know, this behind the scenes moment in particular where she says, like, you dished on my fiance so hard. I have been living for all of these moments. If anything sticks from this season to future seasons, I hope it's this, because the dialogue with the producers I've been eating up. But I have to say, I think this one in particular made it clear, at least in my head, this is obviously a conspiracy theory I'm creating, but I think she was being very blunt. They develop very close relationships with these producers. Obviously, they're by their side like 24/7. And if she was saying statements like this, how many other conversations do we think happened behind the scenes where she said like, oh, Dale's going to win this thing. Like, oh, do I have to go on this date? Like, I just would rather see Dale. And of course, she's just kind of like venting to her own confidant. But to me, this is just the end. Like, how do you go as a producer? I'm going like, okay, well, maybe we didn't steer her enough towards any other guys. Like, did we mess up? Like, we can't take it. We can't turn this around. In her head, she's already married to him. So what are we all doing here? It's not going to work. Right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how from this moment on anybody had a chance. Did you guys feel this way? I mean, what were your thoughts?
The show's felt like it's been over for a while now. And I feel like the producers were struggling with the fact that she was so sure about Dale, and they realized like Claire is so stubborn and so to her word. Like, she's not going to play these games, even if they're like, we'll go entertain this guy for a little while longer. She's not going to do it. So I think that this is when the Twitter theory really comes into play, that maybe they saw this as, we got to end it because Claire, we can't do anything else with her if she's this set and it's week 3.
Totally.
Yeah, you're so right.
There's so much of it in this episode. I mean, it's like truly shocking how many pieces of individual craziness we had tonight. Now that we've talked about that, and we know Dale is the front runner, I still think it's worth assigning our own roses to someone we think stood out this week. It could be Dale, but I feel like some of these guys like really are not getting enough love. So let's talk about somebody who through the midst of all of this impressed us. I'm going to go first. And I'd like to give my roast to Bennett, not even for his roast. I was so charmed by that moment where he like laughed at himself and said like, oh, I know people are going to make fun of me because of my clothes and, you know, whatever else he said. He's our like super bougie guy. I feel like a guy that is that bougie, but also aware of the fact that he wears face masks and is just going to own up to it and be himself, totally charmed me. That's all I have to go off of because we're not seeing a lot of personality moments from the guys. But I'm giving mine to Bennett. What about you, Avery?
I'm also giving mine to Bennett because I think we got to see the most of him tonight. So for that reason, I'm giving him my rose, and because he just really was such a star during his roast, and he saw that as a great moment to call out Dale while also trying to be funny, and he really just stole the spotlight for me. I just love to see more of these other guys' personalities because it's been kind of unknown more than usual at this point.
My rose, no surprise, also goes to Bennett. I think it was really awesome to see this side of his personality tonight because I think, you know, when he first stepped out of that limo, he could have been so hateable. Like, he could have been, you know, the typical like bougie self-centered guy, but he's actually like really funny, really down to earth, and like really cool. So I just loved that about him, that he had this other side to him. And, you know, like you said, we need more moments like Bennett in the face mask, like so chill, so inviting. Like, I could watch a whole season with just Bennett now. So he definitely gets my rose.
Oh my God, I love it, you guys. Bennett clearly won the night, at least in our book. We do want to take a look, though, at some of Bachelor Nation's reactions, because I have a feeling that tonight of all nights, people had some thoughts. Let's take a look. So this first tweet we have is not really a reaction. It's a tease. It says there may be some spoilers ahead. Get ready for a dramatic new episode of Bachelorette on a special night, Thursday, November 5th. This is just from ABC, so they are teasing what's to come. We are, of course, so excited. So obviously they're moving this to a Thursday. We do have the election on November 3rd. So it seems as though they decided that they would let that take center stage because obviously it's very important. Cast your votes, you guys.
All right. Lauren Zima said, I give Clare Crawley so much credit for how calmly she handled Yosef. His insults, his interruptions, wild. Props to Clare for taking the high road here. I think this could go a little bit of both ways. I think she did take the high road, but I think he started off his argument with some good points, but then he took it way too far and got disrespectful.
Shelly said, Bennett was funny as hell tonight. Totally agree with us. He got my virtual rose, and he just really gave us the comic relief that we needed tonight.
All right, next up, Susan says that Claire is the most selfish bachelorette ever. She said, good luck, Dale. You're going to need it. I have to say, for my brief scroll through Twitter, Claire did take a lot of heat tonight. It's going to be a controversial season. I think that's definitely goes without saying at this point.
Mommy says, dude, it's just dumb. All those poor guys wasted their time for a 3-episode season with her. LOL. It's sad. But hopefully they'll get a second chance.
Shelly said, Dale, we all need a Dale. I think she was referring to the moment where he comforts her after the Yosef incident, and I totally agree with her with this. Dale seems like a great guy in that moment, and we could all use a friend or, a confidant like that.
Let's see. Kaylee says that was the most chaotic episode ever. So awkward and uncomfortable. Listen, Kaylee, I agree. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that. It was so much to take in.
Isabel said, all I've heard on this episode is Dale, 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 or this entire season.
Abby says, could Claire be any louder, giving Dale the first rose? This is very true. I mean, we all saw it coming, but Dale getting the first rose during the rose ceremony, it's just going to happen. It's going to keep happening.
Alexis says she didn't even have the respect to send this poor guy home herself. I'm so confused. I don't feel like he pulled away from her. So yes, the awkward kiss moment, very complicated. At the end of the day, I think it was a awkward, innocent, messy, complicated moment. There's so many ways to look at it, and none of them were great. So very tough.
Tayshia coming in like the Bond woman she is. Yay, finally.
KJ says, Bennett for next Bachelor. I totally agree. Like I said, we could watch a whole season with this guy.
Roxy says, never thought I would miss Peter. Well, this one is tough because that season was quite a lot to take, but I might be with Roxy. I might miss Peter. Oh man.
Wow.
Leanne said, worst season. Claire is so disappointing. I feel so sorry for the men that gave up so much to be on the show. Harsh words, but
Whitney said, I know there's a lot of editing on The Bachelorette, but wow, Claire is making it very hard to like her. I mean, it is what it is. We're going to see what they edit for us to see. She could be the way she is, or she could be totally different. Who knows? This is a reality show, and they're honestly the puppets of the producers.
Kiki tweeted, the time the cameras caught Claire refer to Dale as my fiance after the roast when talking to a producer. Oh man, Kiki, what a moment. I'm with you, girl. That was truly something.
And lastly, we have Tracy who said, I hope the promo isn't misleading. This season needs a new Bachelorette. Yes, and we got one.
All right, you guys. Well, as we just saw in those tweets, the season is definitely getting mixed reviews from fans. You either love Claire or you hate Claire. And, as much as this night was a little complicated, we do have excited things to be looking forward to. And I think Claire said at some point, you can't hate love. So let's all just try to be positive. Let's decode this latest promo. We know there are some clues hidden. So we're going to break this down clip by clip and predict what we have to come finally next week. It starts off with some moments that we're already a little familiar with, some things we may have seen before, but let's just start at the beginning. we have that moment where Chris Harrison tells Claire that the path they're on is not going to end well. Let's take a look.
The path we're on right now, it doesn't end well for anybody.
I've just waited so long for this.
Okay.
So, Avery, I am dying to get your take on this. It feels like Chris Harrison looks like the most exhausted, like, parent, school teacher. I don't know how to describe it, but I just feel like this was such a tough moment.
Yes, he definitely looks exhausted. I think he's just stressed and overwhelmed with just the huge plot twist and just even doing a whole season in quarantine in general. But this is something new for him. He's not going off his normal lines like this is the most dramatic season ever. Now he's here saying she blew up the Bachelor. So I could see how this is taking a toll on him.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, let's watch that moment. We have seen it before, but let's watch the moment Chris tells Claire that she blows up the Bachelorette and the confusion that follows suit.
You've just blown up the Bachelorette.
This is hard.
Claire's gone, and I still haven't like fully comprehended what the hell's going on.
So, Gabby, a lot of tears, a lot of emotions, a lot of confusion. I mean, we've really never seen anything like this. The anticipation is just killing me.
It's killing me too. I think this path that Chris, says that we're on has to do with Claire falling so hard for Dale and the guys noticing and not being okay with it. So the tensions are just building and building. And I think they see that going on. And so, I think Chris comes and tells her, like, we need to finish this. We need to end this. We need to pivot, I guess. And so tears are flowing for sure. And it's interesting that one of the guys says Claire is leaving. I think that's a good, key to what we're going to see next week after this promo.
Totally. Avery, do you have any predictions as to where Claire is going? Is she taking some space? Is she running away? I mean, what do we think she's doing?
Probably running off with Dale to get her fairy tale ending, I hope. That's the best possible outcome I could think of. I don't know where else she would be going. Maybe home. Looks like she's leaving for sure now, so she's definitely out of there. We'll have to see.
Yes, we will definitely have to see. Obviously, there are so many questions that will hopefully be tied up just next week. I think this was a very expected turn of events, but the guys clearly have reached their limit. It seems like they're starting to really lose it in this next clip.
What about me? Just tell me. That's all I want to know. This is a two-way street. You're gonna start seeing a different side of me. It's frustrating as hell. I'm gonna freak the
I mean, these are some guys that have, I feel like, really displayed such a level of like maturity. If you really think about it, there hasn't been a lot of drama. Even the confrontation we have seen has been fairly measured. For them to finally get to this place, I mean, Avery, I feel like this makes sense. This tracks to me. Do you feel like these reactions are warranted?
Yes, especially given the situation. They're already just isolated in this one place all together. They had to go through all the quarantine, the COVID testing, and they finally made it to this point, and now this is how it's playing out. I mean, I could only imagine the frustration level.
Yeah, I agree. I think these guys are boiling under this tension that is building. We're starting to even see fights or, disagreements happening between the guys when they all seemed to be in a pack together earlier on in some of the other episodes. So I'm interested to see what happens, between those guys and as well with Dale and, how he fits into the mix of these guys. But at this point, I feel like they're just feeling really invisible and unwanted with Claire. And so that's going to take a toll on them. They're not going to want to be here anymore. And things are just going to get really confusing really fast.
That's totally right, Gabby. I mean, in this next clip, it is so evident that the guys are just drained.
Doesn't seem to make sense to me right now. You can tell that guys are getting drained, getting fed.
I mean, I am someone who is watching this, looking for clues. Of course, we're all tracking every moment of the show, and I'm so confused. Can you imagine how it must feel for them to go through this process? I feel like, how could you even sum up these emotions, Gabby?
I mean, just look at his face. That was a great place to stop this promo, because I think that truly sums it up. These guys are just, all gathered in the living room, slumped over on the couch, saying they're so confused, they don't know what's happening. They're clearly just trying to do their best on this show, and it's not going well for them.
Avery, do you hope, we haven't, I feel like, even gotten to know these guys too well, because we're only on episode 3, even though I feel like it feels like 16 episodes in. We're only on episode 3, but do you hope, knowing what we now know, what the clips were approaching, that they stick around, that they're the guys, that we get to know them better, and that hopefully some of them, have another chance at love?
I really do. I feel like even up until this point, this group of guys has almost been a calmer group of guys. I feel like if this was a different season and this happened, there would be a huge uproar, and they've been handling the whole situation pretty well. We haven't seen the next episode, obviously. I know tensions are a lot higher then, but overall, they've been kind of chill about it. I think it's really a good group of guys, so I hope most of them stay for Tayshia.
Good group of guys or not, they definitely seem like they have a confrontational moment with Claire, which I feel like is warranted, but it looks like we got a little sneak peek of that as well.
We put ourselves on the line. We did everything you asked.
So we did everything you asked. I mean, Avery, they really did. They showed up. They've quarantined. It just feels like at this point they deserve some answers.
They really do. They deserve better at this point. They deserve a Bachelorette that is going to pay attention to them and give them attention like they do deserve, as every contestant should going on a reality show that they signed up for. But she took a different turn.
Yeah, I really feel for these guys. In this week's episode, it was so clear to see every time they were on a date card or they got a date, they got to spend time with Claire, they were so excited. And they're really putting, their whole selves out there. These guys really like Claire. They want to get a chance to know her and to talk to her. She's really, hasn't given it to them at all. So I feel for them. I would totally feel the way they do if I was in this situation, and justice for this group of guys in The Bachelor. They deserve better.
I feel like we all definitely are feeling like there is an apology that they are owed. It looks like Claire sort of gives an apology, sort of gives an explanation. She's definitely talking about something here. I'm curious to see how it'll actually play out, but let's check out this clip.
I'll apologize if I wasted your time. I'll apologize if I hurt you.
Why am I here?
So, I mean, great question. Why are they here? And I feel like I want your take on this, Gabby. Feels like that's the kind of apology somebody gives when there's a but coming. I'll apologize for this and I'll apologize for this, but I won't apologize for this. Do you think this seems like it's going to be a sincere moment?
I think this might become a sincere moment. I think Claire might at first seem a little caught off guard by these guys' feelings, just because she's been so one-track minded on Dale. She probably doesn't even know what's going on, besides that. But I think this apology is warranted. Technically she did waste these guys' time if she didn't give them, their moment to really get to know them, like we saw in this week's episode as well. And so I hope this moment, gives the guys some closure, maybe, if that's what they're looking for, or just another chance, an apology, just something to wrap everything up with their relationships.
Totally. Well, we see, wrapping the relationships up definitely is a possibility here. We don't know that everyone is going to stay for Tayshia, and we do see some guys packing in this next clip.
Everything crumbled in an instant.
What the just happened?
So clearly it looks like next week we're going to be on a roller coaster with these guys, waiting for answers, waiting to see what comes next. Avery, do you think the producers are going to put them through packing up, getting ready to leave, and then they'll be presented with the option to either go or stay? How do we think producers are going to handle this?
I think they'll definitely make them pack first just for dramatic effect, and then that's where the huge twist comes in. Wait, no, there's a new Bachelorette, and then they probably will roll their backpacks right back in and unpack. But I think it's more for like dramatic effect, or other guys might want to just leave if they know it's Tayshia. Who knows?
Totally. What are your thoughts, Gabby? Do you think anyone will be like, you know what? Tayshia seems like a great girl, but after that, I just want to go home. I just want to be done. How do you think the guys will react?
I think that's a very real possibility. And I mean, we've never seen this before. So these guys came on the show for Clare. And now that it's, you know, possibly not going to be Clare anymore, they could certainly not have any feelings for Tayshia and not want to pursue that relationship. I feel like most guys would be very excited to do that and at least get another chance on the show after all they've been through. But yeah, I think some are going to go home. I think, you know, we saw multiple clips of guys packing out. So I think there's going to be some guys that for sure leave this group.
Well, we do have Chris Harrison, you know, talking to the guys, playing Mayor of Bachelor Nation. Let's see what Chris has to say.
We have never dealt with anything like this in the history of our show.
That to me is just such a Chris Harrison line. We have never dealt with anything like this before. But honestly, I feel like you can see it on his face. You can hear it in his voice. Like, this really is unprecedented. Do you think, Avery, if this season ends up being like the best ratings or, you know, fans are obsessed at the end of it, that this is something they'll continue? Or when the world gets back to normal, are we going to see just a regular reboot of the show as well?
I guess that depends on how this one plays out. So far, it definitely is not my favorite season. I think they could maybe try this in the future, or they'll go back to their traditional format of the show, or they'll try something new again. I honestly don't know. We'll have to see.
Gabby, what are your thoughts? Are you into, like, drama aside, you know, characters aside, do you like this, like, one location kind of bubble pressure cooker, or are we missing some of the flash, some of the regular Bachelor pizzazz?
I think we're definitely missing some of the pizzazz. I think this was a good shakeup for the show, and I'm sure it'll help ratings, definitely. And so I'm sure they are, like, loving that right now. But it's been a pressure cooker so far. So I think the producers, you know, no matter what, are geniuses. So they're going to come up with drama that's going to keep people watching no matter what.
Okay, so of course we want answers. We're confused. We're doing all the speculations, and I mean, we know the guys are looking for answers as well.
Yeah, I'm confused as all hell. What is next?
Well, what is next, you guys? We finally have concrete proof. It's no longer up for debate. Let's see what's finally here. What an entrance. Gabby, what were your thoughts on that being Tayshia's big reveal, the final confirmation?
When I tell you that my jaw was on the floor when I first saw this, it was. I was so excited that they threw this in at the end to confirm everything and to get us all excited for Tayshia to come on as the Bachelorette. Of course, they nixed the limo thing. They said, you know, this is a whole new season, whole new girl. We're changing everything up. We're going to do it out of the pool shot. It seemed very Palm Springs-esque. So I thought it was perfect. I'm so excited to see her more on our screens.
Yes, I'm definitely excited to see her. I think it'll be refreshing. I think Clare's time is coming to an end, as it should. It felt longer than it actually was. But I love how they just threw this in at the end with no voiceover, not explaining anything, just a pool shot, boom, Tayshia. And I think that was the best way to do it, actually.
Totally. I mean, we knew this was coming. We knew she was going to get here. These have been rumors that have been swirling for such a long time. But until ABC gave us some sort of confirmation, we, of course, were going to be on the edge of our seats. And I totally agree with you. I think this was the best way to do it because we don't really have any answers. We don't know how she gets there. We don't know what capacity she's fully there in. They didn't give us any sort of like, I'm taking over. So we still have some questions, which at the end of the day, as much as we want to know everything, as much as we wish we knew all the secrets and all the details, that would take all of the fun out of it. So at least we have something to look forward to. So you guys, one final question, because I mean, we obviously don't have any answers to this, but I am curious your take. This is going to be a whole new show, basically. We've never had this happen before. Do we think they're going to stick to the regular format, you know, of one-on-ones and group dates and rose ceremonies? Do we expect to see some shakeups there? You know, we heard rumors of new guys joining. What are your thoughts on how they're going to navigate this? Because we're in completely uncharted territory. Do you have any predictions, Avery?
I think it'll be a little bit of both, sticking to what they usually do and throwing in some things to shake it up. As far as that goes, I don't know what the producers are going to come up with, but I know there's going to be many more surprises. I mean, there always is.
I think, you know, they're going to need some switch ups to keep this season as spicy as it's been. But what I'm really excited to see is, you know, diving into Tayshia's backstory with the show. Because, you know, they're going to have to really get into that and introducing her as the Bachelorette. So, you know, I'm sure we'll look back at times of her on Colton's season, and then recently when she was on Paradise and was with John Paul Jones for a little bit. So it'll be fun to look back on that and just see where she continues her journey in this franchise.
All right, you guys, on that note, we of course want to know all of your thoughts. This was one of the craziest episodes ever. So let us know all your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions, your predictions down in the comments. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future recaps. As always, I'm your host, Fiona Zaring. You can follow me on socials at Fiona Zaring. Avery, where can they find you?
At Avery Grooms.
And Gabby, where can they find you?
You can follow me at Gabby Gonta.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. And thank you for watching. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.